Fred Cobb.
Here.
Let's see, Chris Diana. George Francis. Jerry Moreland.
Here.
Elizabeth Searing.
Here.
Ann Silvis. She also had emailed that she wouldn't be here, so I put her as excused.
Okay. All right, next is approval of the minutes, and we have minutes from August the 27th, and we'll take a minute to go over the minutes, after which...
Well, since we don't have a quorum, we won't be able to vote on the minutes, so if we could maybe wait until later in the meeting, see if Chris Diana comes, then we could vote on them then.
Okay, next would be petitions and communications, but we have no one in our audience, so staff report. You want to go over that?
Yes. You received in your packet a page double-sided of activities that we've done since our last meeting, which according to records was August 27th. So this is an overview of all the things that we've done since then. That regarding the HUD activity, we had submitted our CAPER in September for last fiscal year, and there was a new home rule regulations, and so staff have been attending trainings and conference calls and discussions regarding that new rule. And that's pretty much it. Is there any questions about this, or if not, then okay.
No? Anyone? If not, thank you. I guess a lot of these things don't really require commission action that are going to happen tonight, so you want to just go over our schedule?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, under new business, the first thing is that you would have received was a tentative schedule for adoption of fiscal year 14-15 annual action plan. I wanted to point out a few things on here. There will not be a Community Development Commission meeting next month because of Christmas, so that will be canceled. We won't have one until January. There are scheduled public hearings the first full week in January from the 6th through the 9th at various sites throughout Target area in the city. Still confirming some of those sites, but hopefully we'll be at Prairie School, Hamilton on the Park, Crystal View Townhomes, and here in the city building. And then the next thing is in the next meeting then for the Community Development Commission will be January 21st. That will be the next meeting. And then we will be working on creating the annual action plan, the draft, which we will then bring to the February meeting for review. And then in March, there will be a public hearing before the Community Development Commission to get input on our annual action plan and also to get any recommendations from the commissioners. And we'll also set priorities for the CDBG public service funds for the consolidated social service funding, which will also be coming up in March and April. And then after that, we will then take it to council for their approval, and we will finalize it before we submit it to HUD in May. And then the rest shows we also have other requirements that we have to do with our projects and activities. And then the new fiscal year will begin July 1st. So that is the tentative schedule that we have set for our annual action plan.
Okay. I know that you didn't have our meetings indicated for May and June. I don't see
Um,
July.
No, but it would be the,
Mhm.
I can redo this and send and add that on there.
Okay.
I was thinking of this in relation to the annual action plan. By then,
Oh.
we would have submitted the annual action plan,
Mhm.
and we would have a meeting if there was any items that we needed. I'm assuming that probably in June, we may have agreements, in July, that we'll have agreements for our different grants. But I can certainly add those on here.
Okay.
When those will be.
All right. So at this point, we now have a quorum. We can go back to our minutes and review those, and after which we will approve or modify the minutes. So we'll take a couple of minutes to do that, to review them. Okay, anyone need more time? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes for August 27th, 2013. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from August 27, 2013. Any questions or comments? I have a question. On page 3 there were two ordinances to authorizing the sale of real estate, 1205 West Beslan and 1208 West Dublin. But I don't see a motion addressing those ordinances. Was there?
We'll have to go back and look. I'm sure there was. My guess
Okay.
is I got lost in the shuffle when I was typing it up together. So the city posts the video online, so I'll go back and look at it.
Okay, and this, also on page 3, the motion that's here, it duplicates the motion that's on page 2. It's just like a rip.
Oh, okay.
So maybe that was supposed to be the motion for the property. Looks like the same thing, the motion on page 3 and the motion on page 2.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll have to go back and review the minutes. If you want, we can wait to approve them. I don't think there's any pressing matter to have them approved now,
Mm-hmm,
because I'd rather have it correct.
okay.
Yeah, as I recall, my motion was to forward the two authorization of sales.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure it was. If I go back and look at the video, I'm sure it's all there, so.
Yeah, so we'll revise them, and we
Mhm.
can have them approved in January at the next meeting.
Okay,
Thank you.
good enough. Everything else looks good. Okay, rewrite in January. Okay, next, we go to new business. We don't have any old business. Would anybody like to bring up any old business? If not, we just go on to new business. Okay, which is the schedule for the annual action plan. We've gone over that. Next is an update on GMD grants and programs. Under that, we have the Home Investment Partnerships Program, which is a home program. Community Housing Development Organization, Urbana Home Consortium member projects. Would somebody like to start a
Sure.
discussion on that?
We decided, we looked at last year and we decided that every year we give you an update about all of our programs and the numbers and let you know what we're doing. And so that's what this is for. So I'll have Jen talk about the home project, the home program, and all the things that are listed under there. And then it'll go to Randy, and he'll talk about housing rehab and about the emergency grants and how those programs are going. And then through neighborhood cleanup, and then Janelle have her talk about consolidated social service funding, our transitional housing program, all the way to the emergency solutions grant program, and explain that that is a new grant that we will be administering. So I'll let Jen start. And
Okay,
Thanks.
go ahead.
So the home program basically allows us to undertake various activities, including new construction, acquisition, rental of either owner-occupied units or rehabilitation of rental or owner units, and also tenant-based rental assistance. And we are a consortium. That's how we receive the grant. The City of Urbana is the lead entity. We get the funds, and then we disperse them amongst ourselves, as well as the City of Champaign and Champaign County. So our grant for this current fiscal year was just shy of $700,000, and that gets distributed amongst the different members. And so there was a new home program rule that was published back in August. I want to say August 23rd is when it went into effect. So it's changed some of the ways we have to implement the program, but for the most part, things have remained pretty much the same since the early 90s when we first started participating in the program. For the administrative portion of the grant, 10% is allowed to carry out any sort of administrative activities associated with, building the projects, getting things done. And then we also, as part of the program, are required to set aside 15% of our grant for community housing development organizations. We call them CHODOs. Those are our nonprofits that actually do bricks and mortar type projects. And the ones that we have worked with in the past, or have been working with, I guess, more recently, are Ecological Construction Laboratory, Habitat for Humanity, and then Homestead Corporation of Champaign-Urbana. So Ecolab's project, I suppose, would be the most recent one that they did was 1302 West Dublin, which was a new construction project that they ended up, it was supposed to be strictly a home buyer project. They had a hard time finding a home buyer that qualified for the home and could take on the financing for it. And so they ended up turning it into a lease purchase because they found somebody that was really passionate about this particular type of house. Ecolab is very well known for building houses that are energy efficient. So they're not your typical cookie cutter homes by any means. So they found somebody that really liked the house but didn't quite have everything squared away in terms of finances to obtain private financing through a lender. So in the meantime, they're renting while they go through home buyer counseling and are working to clean up credit, all those things. So that's been great working with them. That's been their latest project. Homestead Corporation's last project that they did was 1107 North Gregory, and we closed that a few months ago. That was also just because the market kind of crashed. These are projects they had signed on. They had a buyer actually for this particular unit, and then she was found to be over income at the last minute. So they could not find a buyer either, so we were able to kind of brainstorm and bring in a nonprofit to sponsor that project. So now it's actually functioning as a transitional housing unit, which is really great because that serves the lowest income populations in our community. So that's an important site for affordable housing. And then the last one is Habitat for Humanity. They had originally applied to be a CHODO as a subsidiary organization called Champaign County Neighborhood Alliance for Habitat. The paperwork for that got a little complicated, and actually the home program rules changed so that they were no longer allowed to participate as a CHODO under a subsidiary structure. So in anticipation of that, we kind of knew that that was coming down the line eventually. Habitat restructured their board so that they could meet all of the requirements. So there's a certain number of public officials you can have under your board, but you also have to have a minimum number of low-income representatives. And those can either be strictly low-income by income source, like, they're below 80% of the median family income as established by our area for households, or they could live in an area that is mostly low income. So we call those areas our community development target area. So if you live within that area, or if you can prove that you are actually at low income, then you can count towards 1/3 of the board low income status. So Habitat has been probably our highest producing CHOTO. They have completed, oh my goodness. So they had a contract from fiscal year 11-12 for 4 homes, and those are all completed. And then they also had a contract for fiscal year 12-13, and I want to say they're wrapping up the last house. Actually, I'm going to the closing this Friday. So that's 8 houses that they've built, and they came on, probably beginning of 2012. So they've really done a whole lot in our area, and that includes houses in both Champaign and in Urbana. So the cities have been generous to further Habitat's mission and our other CHOTO's missions by acquiring lots that have just really dilapidated properties. It's way too expensive to rehab them, or maybe the ownership, nobody knows who owns it, somebody passed away, it's stuck in probate, whatever that is. Sometimes we'll get properties to us that way, but we're able to then donate those to our nonprofits to build housing on. So the last one that we're closing on Friday is 605 Louisiana. So that one, we'll finish that up. And they currently have 4 more that they're working on. So that's pretty significant. Let's see. So that's our community housing development organizations. In terms of what the cities have been doing, City of Champaign right now is taking on a really, really massive project, and I wish I could speak more on it, but I'm not quite in the know on the details. But Bristol Place, they're redeveloping an entire neighborhood essentially. So they've been looking to apply for a Section 108 loan, which is another source of funding through HUD, and they've partnered with the Housing Authority to make that happen. So it's a very large-scale project. They have to have a lot of public input. They're going to have to relocate the people that are there, which means just providing funding to help them move so they can live comfortably and in a way that they want to before they undertake that project. But from what I've read, there's at least $7 million of public funds that will go into that project. Which I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add. Anybody? Okay. And then Champaign County has been focusing I guess before I say that, the City of Champaign in the interim has been doing a few owner-occupied rehab projects, as well as an acquisition rehabilitation program. So since they get a significantly greater amount of funding than the county or Urbana, they have more money. They can pair down payment with rehab, which is great when you're dealing with low-income buyers who can't afford really nice homes. But in that case, sometimes you find homes that really aren't up to snuff, and the home program requires that they be up to code before you can give money to it, before they can buy it. So putting those funds together like that has been really successful in Champaign, but I think their main focus right now is Bristol Place. And then Champaign County has been putting all of their funding into tenant-based rental assistance, which is really great. It moves the funding really quickly, and it really, again, it addresses that population that's at or below 30% of the median family income. So I think in terms of all of our public comments, those are that's the population that's addressed the most. Like, what are we going to do to help the poorest of the poor, essentially? So that program's been great, and there's actually several different entities that are operating tenant-based rental assistance programs. The City of Champaign also funds Champaign County through their funds to augment their tenant-based rental assistance program, and then they also give funding to the Center for Women in Transition to operate a program. And then a few years back, we gave kind of a lump sum to Community Elements, which was formerly Mental Health Center, you may know them by that name, to operate a tenant-based rental assistance program, but focus specifically on persons with mental health issues, which is great that they can focus on that population. And then for the City of Urbana, I won't go into too much detail since Randy's going to talk about our housing rehabilitation, but that's essentially what we're doing with our funds is assisting owner-occupied owners to rehabilitate their homes. And then last year, we actually started the down payment assistance program, which is the Urbana Dream program. So we can provide up to $10,000 of assistance, up to, I guess, 10% of your purchase price to help you with down payment and closing costs. So that program's been ramping up pretty quickly. It's been gaining momentum as people are, getting the word out and lenders want to participate. So, but so far it's been really well received. We did submit an application for Federal Home Loan Bank funds to try and augment that program, keep it going a little bit longer. With the amount of funding that we set aside, it was $100,000 plus the match dollars. There's maybe enough to do 12 to 15 projects there, or grants, which I call them grants, but they're really deferred loans, which means you have to live there for 5 years before they're actually forgiven. So, yeah, we will find out at the beginning of December if we get to continue that program with additional funds. Other than that, I think those are the only things I wanted to touch on. Does anybody have specific programs about, who we're working with, what we're doing, status of current projects, home program policies? It's fascinating. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Bristol Place. Does Urbana have anything to do with that?
No. We will if they do end up putting home funds into it. We're obviously going to have to monitor them as they carry out the project. So making sure that they follow all of the relocation requirements for everybody that's living there. There's Section 3 requirements, which involves hiring low-income people. To any new hires that you have with construction projects at that scale require Section 3. And then there's Davis-Bacon requirements, which I think we're more familiar with. I don't know how I would summarize Davis-Bacon other than prevailing wage. I think of it as the prevailing wage requirement. So making sure everybody's getting paid what they should be getting paid on a big project like that has that amount of federal funds. So I don't believe we'll be involved. Obviously, I think we might get to do the environmental for that project. No. Okay, so no. But in terms of funding, I don't think we are planning on putting any funds in there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Okay.
I did want to note that in your packet, you also received fact sheets and some of the information that we'll be talking about. One is a flow chart for the different grants, so with the different percentages and things like that. So I wanted to let you know remind you we had that stuff as well in the packet.
Okay.
So Randy will go on then and talk about Rehab the Whole House program and then move into some of the other ones too.
Yeah, as far as the programs go, like Kelly talked, our whole house rehab program. Jen touched on it briefly. That's one of the programs we operate with the home funds that we do get here. And our funding is a lot less than what Champaign gets. So last year we were able to complete 7 whole house rehab programs. Our whole house rehab, we're able to spend up to $25,000 on the house. We use a grant deferred loan program for that one. So half is a grant, 12.5. The other 12.5 is a deferred loan program. It's a mortgage against the property, stays with the property until the property is sold or the title's transferred. That's when we'll get our money back. There's no interest, nothing accrued, and the homeowner doesn't have to make any payments until the property's transferred. And again, last year we did complete 7. This year we currently have 6 applicants. 4 of them have been approved. 2 of them right now are out in the bid process. 4 of the projects are actually under contract and underway. 2 of them should be complete here within the next couple weeks. We are taking applicants and more applications as we're going along, depending on funding, whether we'll be able to complete any more this fiscal year or we'll have a waiting list for next fiscal year. That's basically our whole house rehabilitation program. Then we jump into our emergency grants, our access grants, and our senior repair program, and that's all done with community development block grant funds. There are no home funds involved in those programs. And those programs are all grants. The emergency grant program, and basically that's what it states is what it is for an emergency that arises throughout the household, whether the water heater isn't working or the sewer line's plugged up, active roof leak, things of that nature. Furnace not working allows us to go in and take the application. These programs, the emergency grant program, is based on 50% of median family income. So, again, all our programs are based on owner-occupied and household income. Last year, we completed 7 emergency grants. 2 were plumbing and heating repairs, 2 were electrical upgrades and repairs, and 3 of them actually dealt with roof repairs. And as far as the access grants, last year we completed 4 of those. And our access grants are for persons with disabilities of any nature, which allows us to go in, install ramps, remodel the bathroom, eliminate the bathtub, put a shower unit in, things of that nature, grab bars, visual smoke detectors. And again, last year we completed 3 of those. Of those, 3 were bathroom renovations and 1 was a ramp installation. Currently, we've had 2 emergency grant applications which have been taken and completed. We haven't had any access grants this year as far as applicants. And we went out today on our third emergency grant application we took this afternoon. And again, it's a water leak. It's a house on a slab, and their water bills were, the last one was $250. They've got a water leak somewhere underneath in the pipes. So once that application is approved, we'll be able to get that done, hopefully. One of the other programs we do then is our senior repair program, and that's one of the most popular programs, I guess, throughout the city. These 3 programs, which I forgot to mention, are citywide. They're available citywide. Our whole house rehab program is just for our targeted neighborhoods. But our senior repair program is for seniors or persons with disabilities. Again, it does have owner-occupied and income qualifications. But this one allows us to spend up to $1,000 on general home maintenance for our seniors, whether it's fixing a leaky faucet, hanging a storm door. And a lot of times it also works for replacing a water heater, so I don't have to go through the paperwork for the emergency grant program. We can get it done a lot quicker. Anything I can get done a lot quicker under the senior repair program. The more money, the more paperwork on the applicants. But that, again, that's been one of the most popular programs we've had for a long time. Keeps our seniors and our persons with disabilities in their homes to help them maintain them so they can stay in their homes. Last year we completed 17 of those, and currently we've got 8 of those in progress this fiscal year. And that's basically it for our whole house and our emergency grant programs, our CDBG funds that go into. As far as any housing repairs, those are the programs we operate. Any questions on any of those?
What age is considered senior?
62 or above.
62, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. And then as Jen was talking earlier then too, as far as our property acquisition, and there's a list in the handout that Kelly gave as far as the properties that we do have in our housing stock right now that are available for buildable lots. We have 2 buildable single-family residential lots, I should say. And then we've got 2 good-sized lots for future development. But the way Habitat has been going and the construction that they've been doing lately, we're going to be looking for some more additional lots so we can keep them going. Thing is, with our funding and stuff, again, the more we spend on purchasing lots, we've got to find the right mix, get them bought at the right price, so we're able to donate them back to Habitat. So we're always looking. So whenever those come up. And then neighborhood cleanup, again, that's with our CDBG funds, and that's a very popular program, always has been since I've been here and before. And this year was no difference, and thanks to everybody in grants management for covering for me this year. I wasn't here to attend, but they took care of everything, and everything ran smooth as usual. And again, it was another success Again, those are, handouts are in your packet too, as far as how many people served, how many tons of junk they actually got rid of. And it was last year and this year, last spring and fall is what we put in here. So that's our final summary and how much it's cost, how much is spent, so. And our next one is scheduled for May 14th, I believe, so you can mark that on your calendars if you'd like to come out and volunteer. Otherwise, that's pretty much it as far as the programs that are operated through myself with the assistance of everybody else in grants. Any questions there?
Any questions? Comments?
Yeah, just a question on, or two questions actually, I guess. On that property on West Washington, 1603 West Washington,
Mm-hmm.
are we looking at alternatives other than the usual regular build on that? I mean, since it's zoned the way it is.
All B3.
Yeah, it's Zone B3, but it, my understanding.
Usable that way or not really?
No, my
Okay.
understanding, when something does happen, it's gonna be put back into.
So that was the old
Yep.
zoning on that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Then the other one that I wondered on was on, that one on Wright Street, which I think we've talked about before. Just how much is on that in terms of liens and encumbrances? Is that really buried?
Yes.
Okay.
I've talked to legal, I don't know how many different times, and we just haven't found a way to, where to start and where to stop on how much time we want to spend and how much staff time legal.
Is the big issue the complexity of them or
Yes.
the amount? It's the complexity.
It's a combination, Chris. It's more, yeah, it runs in different directions on that.
Okay.
And there, I've got a lot of stuff in the files from years past that we've done title searches and stuff on.
Is that, I'm trying to visualize where that is. Is that, some of those are so small like that one is that really usable for much?
This one
40
isn't.
by 65?
No. This one, no, that, it's not, but again, it's adjacent to,
So
1411.
only if it goes with the other one, is it got any use at all?
Yeah, and this was purchased clear back in '93.
Right, I was
Um,
noticing that it's,
And I think that was the reason everybody thought they could get a hold of 1411, and here it's 2013, and we still haven't, and it's still sitting vacant. And it's a big corner lot.
and
what it would be.
what's the status on the 1411? I mean,
It's still sitting vacant, and nobody's done anything with it.
but I mean, the ownership on it is what?
That I'm gonna have to check with legal on, because it was tied up in, I honestly couldn't tell you, without going back through the file right now.
Because 1411, that's not ours, I mean.
No,
Okay.
that's the one that we, if we could get it, we could
If we could
combine
get it, but
both.
we don't know where it is.
Right.
Or you're not sure exactly what the status on it is.
Right.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have consolidated social service funding, transitional housing. We talked about that a little bit, but go ahead, details.
Okay, so the consolidated social service funding, we do that in conjunction with the city general funds as well as the township funds. We did that earlier this year. For this fiscal year, there was $265,000. Of that, $5,000 came from our community development block grant, and we gave those to 3 agencies that met the priorities set by the commission. Again, that was the Regional Planning Commission for their senior services program, Community Elements for the Roundhouse Youth Shelter, and the Greater Community AIDS Project for emergency assistance. So this is something we do annually. The amount of money changes from year to year just based on the budget of how much we can put in, but we have been working on selecting agencies that are really meeting measurable outcomes for Urbana residents and continuing to grow those outcomes and measures. The transitional housing program is run by us. We actually have units that we own, scattered sites throughout the city to provide housing to homeless families with dependent children. The transitional housing program is a 2-year program where families work on goals of self-sufficiency. They do pay rent based on their income, and all of the utilities and property maintenance that is covered with CDBG grant funds that we administer. Public facilities and city infrastructure projects. So public facilities are projects that are funded to other social service agencies that are providing services to Urbana residents. In the past, we have funded places like DSC, Developmental Services Center, Community Elements. We did a project for them actually just this past fiscal year for their supported apartment program. But different renovations that an actual facility needs to continue to provide services for low to moderate income persons or families, including Urbana residents. The city infrastructure projects are projects that we take on in conjunction with Public Works. Most recently, we did the Northwest Streetlight project. New streetlights were installed, a good section of Northwest Urbana that the residents are very happy about. Prior to that, there was the street light installation at Lenore and Hunter and Lenore and Austin. So more projects like that. Also, the multi-use path would be considered a city infrastructure project. So projects that are within our targeted neighborhoods that are meeting some of the goals that the funds require, that are also part of our capital improvement plan that the city is looking to do. Then, any questions about those under the Community Development Block Grant funds?
Any questions? No?
Okay. Next, the Supportive Housing Program for Homeless Families in Transition and the Emergency Solutions Grant. These are 2 programs that come from underneath the Champaign County Continuum of Care. The County Continuum of Care, it's a lot of C's, is a body that was formed because of federal regulations in order to receive money for services provided to homeless families or homeless individuals. So the first grant that we currently operate is a supportive housing program. We receive funds this year was $200,619. Those funds are mostly sub-granted to 3 programs. The Center for Women in Transition operates A Woman's Place, which is a domestic violence shelter here in Urbana. They also operate their homeless services in 2 houses in Champaign. And also the Salvation Army has a transitional housing program where they have 3 single-family units to house families. So we provide the funds for the operation, or I should say the funds come through us as the grant administrator, and we sub-grant those to those 3 agencies to operate and provide the supportive service and administration cost. And as a part of doing that, Urbana also benefits with a little bit of administration cost as well. It does require that we monitor those agencies, and a lot of that is done through the continuum, this bigger body that HUD has charged with the responsibility of making sure any programs funded through your continuum meet certain guidelines. That's across the board. So even programs that are not specifically responsible for as a body of the continuum, we sit on the executive committee and have a role as a board member. We are also responsible that for the entire continuum that the good is served so that each program can continue to receive their funding. The Emergency Solutions Grant. This would be a new grant for us. It has currently gone directly to agencies. It is also funded through the Continuum of Care. It was formerly known as the Emergency Shelter Grant, but they changed the shelter to solutions so that it could do a few more things than just strictly 2 shelters. So one of the things that changed this year, that the reason the city of Urbana got involved, is that grantees were required to have a grant minimum of $25,000. The agencies that we would be sub-granting to had grant amounts that were less than 25, so they could not personally take the grant. So I believe there is a chart that we included in your packet that shows how that flow of money starts off at HUD, and then it actually goes to the state. We are not a direct entitlement community for ESG funds as we are with the home program or with Community Development Block Grant. and then the state will grant to us money. There are two sides to the money. There is the shelter side, which is what the city of Urbana will receive, and then there's also money for activities known as rapid rehousing and emergency rent assistance payments for families that are near homeless or are homeless and need something a financial boost, and then they can go back into an apartment, but just something to kind of get over that hump of the homelessness experience that they're in. So we will be receiving $70,617. Most of that will be going straight to shelters. The 5 shelters that we will be sub-granting to are Crisis Nursery, Community Elements has the Time Center program, the Greater Community AIDS Project, the Center for Women in Transition, and the Salvation Army. And they will be using funds for like their essential services and operations, so the day-to-day things that keep the shelter up and running. And again, through the continuum, we are responsible for the monitoring of that and making sure that the programs that we're sub-granting to are meeting the guidelines and the federal regulations. Any questions about the continuum of care or homeless programs?
So those needing those services would apply directly to those other agencies, is that right?
Yes. We
Okay.
are just the
monitor.
The monitor. What is changing is that there are certain guidelines and federal requirements that some nonprofits are not able to meet for one reason or another. And so the city of Urbana is in a position to be that administering agency and to receive those funds on behalf of that agency and then sub-grant them. And the nice benefit is that there's a little administration money that can come along with that.
I guess I have a question. Other than the form this form, what other means of getting the word out to the public is there that, I'm sure there's people out there that are in need and probably aren't even aware.
The Continuum of Care, we have a wide network of agencies. It's made up of various nonprofits, other social service providers, government entities, the universities, businesses, anyone who has an interest or a stake in homelessness. And through that, even with the United Way, there are massive amounts of information that is provided, and even some faith-based organizations that may not be a part of our funding, but they care and they come to the table so that we can kind of be on one page and one accord as a county. Most programs have a lot of information and referral. I don't know if you've heard anything about 211, but 211 will soon be live in our area. It is probably, I believe Illinois is the last state to get 211. But it would be a number that you can call no matter where you are, and you will be able to, based on your needs, be linked on what they call a live call directly to a service provider who can talk to you about what housing options or whatever your emergency situation is. So that will be a new tool that we're using to help that communication base between those that are called. But phone calls go, there's a help book that is put out every year that has information on shelter providers, emergency food, emergency rent assistance. And then we actually get a lot of calls, or I should say I get a lot of calls from people, and so I try to make the best referrals to them of places that they can go or where they can receive assistance based on their needs. So it's a lot of word of mouth that is passing it along. The Continuum hopes to have a website up and running here soon that would help as well for people who are surfing the net.
I thought I heard recently that the help book was not going to be printed any longer. It would only be online. Is that
So
happening?
211 is part of what is changing with that. There are a couple of things. The help book was put out by Family Service, and there was funding that had it's not being funded at the same level that it was in the past, partly due to some of that money going towards 211. So it will be available online. 211 will have a website, and so all the information that was in the help book is going to be transferred over, as well as additional information that can be added. And the goal is that it would actually be updated a little bit more often than the help book. It was only once a year, and a lot of things could change. So 211 is kind of that new branch of what the help book would be.
I guess I have another question. You spoke of faith-based organizations, and to keep that pulse strong and even make it stronger, is there any communication with the area churches? Because they have the means on any Sunday morning or Wednesday night or whenever. They have access to the people as well.
We do work with faith-based organizations. There are, one example would be the First United Methodist Church in Champaign. They have a program called Austin's Place, which they started. There's a member that sits on the continuum of care board that's also related to Austin's Place through the church. They offer a women's shelter in the winter months. It will open up this year, December 15th, and it goes through March 31st. It is for single women. There's no case management or anything. It's just a warm place to stay overnight. They check in with the Center for Women in Transition to be screened. It's really a basic screening, really making sure that the person coming in wouldn't do any harm to themselves or those that may already be staying there for the night. And then I believe they can come in at 8 p.m. and then they're out like at 6 a.m. But it's really just an overnight shelter. So that was one link with a faith-based organization that really took on a project like that. RUM, Restoration Urban Ministries in Champaign, is a faith-based organization that operates a transitional housing program. They have participated with us in the continuum. So even though there are some faith-based organizations that are not receiving federal money, or may, just depending on what happens, the Salvation Army is a faith-based organization that does receive federal money. But there are many that are providing services and are sitting at the table with us and providing those resources and then sharing that with those that worship with them. Or
I've got to even go a little further. You're saying that if a church were to contact the city and say they want to do something for the people in need, you all would open up that level of communication directly with that faith-based organization?
Absolutely, communication. I think we'd always could have communication. There is a fine line about funding. I think that might be, is that where you're going with the funding part? For instance, our consolidated social service funding. If a faith-based organization would like to receive federal funding or even sometimes state and local funding, the catch, if you will, is that you cannot force the participants of the program to faith-based activities in order to receive the services. If they choose that as an option, that's fine, but it cannot be a program requirement in order to receive those services. And so that's a choice of organizations. We do work with faith-based organizations that have said we will not make that a requirement, and therefore we're able to fund them. But that's the red tape, if you will, when it comes to providing services in that form.
Thank you.
Let's see, what did you say the timeline is for this phone number 211?
They have been getting information from adding people. They want to have enough service components or service-based organizations registered and providing their information before it goes live. But we've heard that it should go live in the spring, if not sooner than that. Funding is also a part of that it will take a little bit of funding to do that. And so the United Way of Champaign County has participated in that. And I also believe that the United Way on a state level is also participating with seeing this happen in Illinois.
Okay, so to get the information on the other organizations, you say for the help book information, what is that website?
I believe it's still operating. I think helpsource.org.
Pardon
You
me?
could helpsource.org,
Oh,
but I can double check and we can provide that link, and there might even be a hard copy of the book available if you like one. I think it might be a little old, maybe November 2012 was the
Okay.
last one they put out.
so to access that, you would have to have internet, and
Or you can call 211. That would be the beauty of 211.
in the
is
future.
that in the future. There are, 211 is live in a few places. I believe out of
It's in McLean.
McLean County. Yeah.
Is that the only place?
There are two counties currently that are kind of like test pilot, if you will, for Illinois to see how it was working, what the demand would be, to make sure that they'd have enough operators available to respond and they want it to be streamlined, that everybody gets the same information when you call. So I believe that that has gone well. PATH out of Bloomington is who would be operating the service for the entire state. So it looks like it's going to be a very good thing. But even if you don't have internet service, the ability to go to any phone, I believe even a pay phone, you could dial 211. It would operate like 411, 911, 311, 811, and you would get a live operator who could assess your situation based on the information you give them. So as long as the caller was willing to provide enough detail about what they needed, they could then be transferred to a live person. So not even just getting the phone number, but the 211 operator would call an agency, talk to that agency staff person, give a little background information, and then connect the caller and that staff person, what they call a warm transfer.
Okay, anyone else? Thank you very much. Is there more information for us?
No, I think that's it. I did want to respond. I think the Council of Service Providers to the Homeless also has a lot of faith-based organizations that attend as well. And they also have one that's called Partnership Against Homelessness, PAA. So there are other organizations as well, faith-based that, and I think they have representatives that come to the Continuum as well. And other than that, that's our updates for this year for all of our programs.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioners, anything else? If not, meeting is now adjourned.